Here are 15 fantasy books that are perfect to binge. I was not able to put them down to stop reading them. And in here you'll see books that are either concluded or standalone, so are perfect if you want to binge them. And we'll start with one of those trilogies that are unforgettable, that from the beginning you know that you're reading something different, not only because there's this amazing blend of characters that are really fleshed out with the pace that it's non-stop, very high stakes, but also the writing style, the tone in which the author places us. It's incredible. From the beginning, you will feel the fears and the anger and the emotions of our main character, Darrow. And I'm talking about Red Rising by Pierce Brown. Being fair, this is an ongoing series, but the first trilogy is concluded. I read it and it's satisfying. I warned you now, it is highly emotional and you will fear for the characters from the beginning. You don't know what will happen, and there are a lot of twists and turns involved. This story at its core is telling us a rebellion, and what will really compel you about this story is this rebellion idea. We have this society that is labeled in different colors and he will try to tear them down. It is fascinating. Next, we have a trilogy that, although I read it a long time ago, I still remember vividly where I was and how consumed I was reading it. I stayed long hours into the night reading this story. I could not believe what was unfolding. It's not only that the magic system, it's considered by most, me included, one of the most well-crafted hard magic systems out there, but also the blend of characters, how charismatic they are, and just the story that starts like a heist, but it is a rebellion at its core. It takes the story of what will happen if the bad one were to rule. It's phenomenal. And that is Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. Even though it's a trilogy, you can read the first one, which almost reads as a standalone, and if you don't like it, you don't need to continue, but I bet you will. This is a story that has made fantasy fans all over the world. You will fall in love because of the magic, how these different metals are ingested, and you will have different powers, and you will remain because the pacing is non-stop, the stakes are incredibly high, and you just won't be able to stop following these characters. Another story that I was not able to put down, that it was so bingeable that I actually cancelled plans in order to remain reading, which it's not necessarily something that I will recommend, but if you want to do that, I will always support you. It was the case because this book blends perfectly humor with really high stakes. It has a prophecy, it has this war-driven angle, but also this politics. The stakes from the beginning are incredibly high because we will be following this character that has just created a coup and has killed the king. And that is Promise of Blood, the first book in the Powder Mages trilogy. This story has an incredible magic system as well, but really what conquered my heart are these characters, and especially seeing how things are unfolding and you will be trapped and not able to stop reading this. We continue with a story that really shines because of how amazing the heist is done and also how compelling and well crafted the characters are. It's a story that, yes, will have this pacing that it's non-stop because you will need to do this heist, but at the same time, what really will get your guards and just you keep reading, it's how really great and how intricate are the relationships between all these different characters that are doing whatever they need in order to survive, and that is Six of Crows by Lee Verdugo. This story is really low magic, belongs to the Grishaverse, and although you won't see this flashy magic every now and then, these scenes are so unpredictable. You will follow the characters really not knowing what will display, and your heart will be in the steps, are in the knives of these characters. We continue with a story that I read in just 2 sittings. I was not able to put it down. I was traveling, and although I wanted to travel and I wanted to see stuff outside, what I really wanted to do is to stay home and read. And that's a rare feast, especially when you're traveling to a place that is supposed to be as wonderful as London. But this book couldn't come in a better moment because it also has London as the main theme. And what makes the story so bingeable is how incredible the world is, how the magic goes to this different Londons and just trespasses, and you see these different characters going back and forth, and you're completely lost to this world. It has escapism at its best. And it is a story written by an author that, in my opinion, has always this twist of writing something that it's incredibly persuasive, but also it's a little bit dark. And this is Darker Shade of Magic by B. Schwab. This story at its core, it's phenomenal because you have this idea of these different Londons that are interconnected, and you have this magic that it's flowing from one side to another. There's one London that is entombed, it's forever lost because magic consumed it. And in the other end of the spectrum, we have Grey London, which is like our days, no magic. And we have these different characters that are intertwined in this story. Stakes are incredibly high. You see action scenes that are, although a little bit predictable, will really have you reading and hooked. I was not able to stop. Next, we have the first standalone in this list, and it's one of my favorites of all time. I think it's perfect if you want to lean into sci-fi, and it's so great because you follow this character that has no idea what is happening from the beginning, but he has such optimism that he's able to recover and put together the pieces, and you will follow this character understanding what is missing and putting that together in this mission that it is incredible. And you will see these incredible things along the way, and it's just so overwhelming and so emotional, and I loved it beginning to end. I was not able to put it down, not only because of the mystery of what was happening was killing me, but also because the main character is so charismatic, and what unfolds, it's so outstanding that I promise you, you won't be able to stop reading. And that is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. The story starts with our character waking up in space, not knowing why he's here, why he is alone, and what is his mission. And I promise you, it pays off. It is surprisingly emotional, and I love that. Will always recommend if you're in a slum or if you want to binge something, even if it's a standalone. I promise you, the scope of this story, it's so great that you will feel fulfilled. The next story you won't be able to put down because it not only has a perfect heist, but it also blends genres. It will really take you and expand your mind. It also has these misfit characters. It has a sentient key, and the stakes are so high. Pacing is non-stop, and it has this perfect humor. I was cackling it loud while at the same time I was scared, and I was so pumped with adrenaline. I really wanted to keep reading, and that is The Founders Trilogy by Robert Jackson Bennett. If you've heard lately The Tainted Cup, which is a murder mystery by this author, and you're in love with how good he crafts characters and that perfect blend of humor, then you will love Foundryside and The Founders Trilogy. This is more on the fantasy and sci-fi side. You will have this amazing heist, but the characters, how they are crafted. This is a story that I first read when I was moving to my house, and I needed to do this whole unpacking. Days were long, and it made my whole moving a breeze. I was not able to stop doing stuff because I wanted to keep listening in this case. So I really recommend also the audiobook if you want to give that a try. There's also queer representation in this story, and I could not believe what was happening. Next, we have a standalone that honestly was so fast-paced that I needed a break after it. Now, that is perfect if you want to binge something, because you won't be able to put it down every time something is happening. You won't be able to stop reading, so it's perfect if you want to cure a reading slump. There's so many good things in here. For starters, it's a story that follows this girl that lives in a library. Something goes terribly bad and she needs to flee, and that is Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. What really steals the show here, it's not only our main character, but also this wizard, and especially his demon. It was so hilarious. At the same time, there were so many action scenes, and I really enjoyed this story. I think it's one of the best young adult standalones that you can find. So really pick this one up if you like libraries, if you like wizards, and especially if you like humor and a little bit of romance. Next story, it's been in my top, and it has such an important place in my heart because it's a story that just sparks joy. It's really charged with a very intense plot. You will see pirates, wizards, a tournament. There's a lot. There's the chosen one trope, and all in all, it's a story that, although it's a little bit short, it just packs so much, and it's from one of my favorite authors, and that is Neil Gaiman. This story, it's really a testament on how we can be better and how we can find happiness and how we are the chosen ones. I love love this beginning to end, although I don't really love this hardcover, but let me know. Now we're gonna go with the stories that are also highly bingeable, but that will require a little bit more. They are not as fast-paced as the ones that we've seen so far. There are stories that are leaning more towards the medium pace, but they just nonetheless have something that will really ask you to keep reading in order to figure out what happens. First one is a story that is written in such a weird way. It's probably one of the weirdest books that I read. Nonetheless, it stilled my heart from the beginning. The main character is such a cinema role, and what happens is a mystery as big as the world, and you need to unravel it with our main character who lives in this house that is massive, and he's alone. He will be accompanied by some other person every now and then, and they need to figure out what happens in this incredible book that is Pure Nessie by Susanna Clarke. This is a very short book that leans more towards the magical realism, but still, it has so much stuff. It really fulfilled me. Once that you start to understand what is happening, it is so consuming, and I was not able to stop it. This is also one of those books that once that you finish it, you still think about it. This is the story that will remain, that will linger in your mind. Our next story is a little bit more complex because it will blend a lot of different points of views, and they will be scattered across the land. However, how you follow these characters and the things that they are facing, it's so incredible that you will be compelled. They are great characters, so they're not this charming, incredible, good characters, but they lean more towards the I am grey, I am doing stuff that it's not necessarily good, and you are consumed because you want to follow and you want to see what is happening. And that is The Drowning Empire by Andrea Stewart. This story, it's great because it has a hard magic system that it's completely bizarre, very creepy, and I loved it. And we'll be following this idea of a girl that wants to take her rightful place, and she needs to remember, she needs to relearn this magic, and also another anti-hero kind of character that is trying to save everyone. We might also have an animal companion, which always makes a story all the better. Next story I struggled to read for ages because I thought it was not going to be for me. It screamed classic fantasy but with a modern touch, and although that compelled me, I somewhat thought that this was going to be boring. I was mistaken. It starts somewhere on this lower side, but it really picks up, and there's this fight between good and the evil, and you follow these teen characters that are struggling to follow and to understand who they are, and that is Malice by John Wayne. This story really took my heart. It's one of my favorite reads last year. I read it when I had some days off and I was not able to put it down. I remember staying up till 3 a.m. trying to understand what was gonna happen, and afterwards not being able to falling asleep. Our next read is a standalone that I read in one day because I was not able to stop, not only because it has a great theme, but also because it feels cozy but adventurous. It has this magic system that is to die for, and the stakes are also high. The emotions that you will feel are so beautiful, and I cherish this story beginning to end. It has this perfect amount of a little bit of romance, and it is so wholesome, and that is Jumi and the Nightmare Painter. There's one theme that I really love, the theme of dreams, and the idea of nightmares coming to life feels so fascinating to me, and having this role that it's able to paint them and then rob them of their power feels fascinating. But we all know that Sanderson is a master crafting magics and crafted world buildings. So what I will give you to also read this story is that there's more. There's this Freaky Friday kind of story where our characters are from different places and they change places. They need to relearn the magic. They need to relearn everything and discover themselves. It feels wholesome, and I really recommend. It's very easy to read. We're getting close to the end with a next story that it is dark, that it is grim, in that it really has a little bit of politics, of religion, of action, and it has this elden, terrible magic that allows the wielder to convey with the death. And I was so compelled about this story that I was not able to put it down. It feels like a mystery, a thriller at the beginning. It feels like you're in this gloomy village and you don't know what will happen, and you need to put together the pieces. And once that you realize the sheer scope of what is about about to unfold. It's so massive that you won't be able to stop, and that is Empire of the Wolf, with the first book, The Justice of Kings, also one of my favorites last year. And it is so because of how masterfully the author blended the religion, the chaos, the magic, this really, really grim setting. It is phenomenal. It is really different, feels fresh, and it is concluded. Please pick this one up. And last, and potentially the best, we have a story that it is long. So if you want to get lost in this story and in this world and with these characters, you will be able to do so. Up top in the list of a lot of different authors and booktubers. And it's a series that I am discovering myself as we speak, because I'm reading book 5 right now. We have a read along of this story throughout our Patreon, and that is Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan. The magic here, the scope of the characters, the land, and how everything is intertwined. It is fascinating. Each book, it's an adventure in itself. So each story feels very bingeable, but at the same time, you know that you have more stories. So very easy to get addicted to these. Be aware. And if you want to start reading it, consider joining my Patreon. A part of this, we have a book of the month, we have reading sprints, we have games, and all in all, we are a very cozy little community, and I will love to have you there.